All right, welcome everyone to our special meeting of the Denali Borough Assembly, April 28th, here at 6 p.m. on the internet. Special meeting tonight to look at our FY22 budget. Don't have any ordinances on the agenda tonight, so no public hearing. So we'll just go straight to calling the meeting to order. And to do that, I'd ask Mayor Walker to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if he's so willing.
Yeah, gladly. Thank you. Thanks, Amber. We have the flag up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's how it closes.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. And I would ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Sure. I'm catching an echo from somewhere. Talon Shreve,
Here.
Jake Hill,
Here.
Joe Chatfield, Jeff Stanger, Dominic Canali,
Here.
Lisa Miner,
Here.
Eileen Holmes,
Here.
Krista Zappone,
Here.
Jared Zimmerman.
Here.
There's quorum.
Move to excuse absent members.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Hill to excuse and has been seconded. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to excusing? Show of hands. Seeing none, we'll call that unanimous and move on to public comments. It doesn't look like we have anybody on the Zoom call, but is there anybody on the phone, or do we get any communication before the meeting?
No, it's all quiet right now.
Okay. So we'll move on to resolutions, and we do have three budget-related resolutions on the agenda. First one up is Resolution 2107, which is the matching grant program funding recommendation. And the three of these are resolutions that came out of our special grant meeting a few weeks ago.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2107. I'll second.
Okay, been moved by Mr. Hill and seconded to approve Resolution 2107, and that resolution recommends not funding the matching grant program for this year. Any discussion? Well, hearing no discussion, ask for a roll call vote on approval.
Lisa Miner,
Yes.
Talon Shreve,
Yes.
Krista Zappone, Krista,
Yes.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Eileen Holmes,
Yes.
Jake Hill,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Okay. Resolution is approved, and that'll bring us to Resolution 2108, which is the nonprofit grant program funding recommendation.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2108.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Canali to approve Resolution 2108 and then seconded. Any discussion or amendments on this resolution? Ms. Zappone?
Yeah, thank you. I have just the point of discussion I've been bringing up kind of consistently here. I still have yet to receive any contact from Railbelt Mental Health. Um, I've written down their phone number now, so I'm going to make some pretty good efforts. But my question is, if I don't amend this resolution, would I still be able to amend the budget at the coming meetings if I continue not to have contact?
Yep, it'll be, yeah, if we introduce the budget tonight, we'll for sure have at least the following meeting and likely another after that before final approval. But
Okay.
certainly after the public hearing, we'd have a chance to amend it again.
Okay, then I will withhold my amendment for now. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mayor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. And to really all of these, I'd like to commend the Assembly for their work as the Grant Review Committee in considering these requests and forwarding recommendations you believe to be in the best interest of the borough for this year. I would like to point to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 whereas of each resolution, which states whereas the Assembly determined that preservation of borough funds is imperative and that borough funds should be prioritized to support borough operations, school functions, and emergency services. We would like to be in a position to more strongly support these different important nonprofit groups this year, but that statement is also pretty much reiterated in the administrative, budget message. It's part of your budget, and I think it's important that we're kind of together in that message of the importance of that this year. Yeah, we'd love to fund the matching grants. It's been a great program. It's going to continue to be a great program. We just need to take a pause on it this year, and these funding levels are lower than they've been in the past. But we need to take these measures to be in a position where we can continue to fund in the future. So that's my just kind of general overview. And I just wanted to point out that whereas for the Assembly and for the public. Thank you.
Other discussion? And I guess I would ask, we heard from a couple of these organizations at the last meeting, or at the special grant meeting. And I think it's safe to assume that the reduced level of funding from recent years is going to affect operations. But I guess I see a strong interest in making sure that these organizations stay solvent and functional through the financial crisis. And I'm pretty good shock to the budget to some of these organizations. But have you or can any of the grant team there heard anything to that effect, or does it seem like belt tightening will allow these organizations to continue and still serve the community?
I wouldn't say that we've heard from every organization, but from some of the ones we have heard from, they say they understand the borough's situation this year and this kind of placeholder / keep the lights on level of funding. And they're going to do just that, as well as lean on other potential funding, savings and or other grant opportunities to carry out their different missions.
Yeah, and I guess I would kind of say, kind of similarly, I think at our last meeting, there was some kind of expectations or hopes for other grant opportunities to fund some of these operations. So just over these next couple months, as we know, and even into the next year as we go into, I guess go into our budget amendments and stuff like that for this, just to kind of see if it's going to maintain some kind of level of fluidity. But I think to set up this level of expectation is good, because it's as much or a little more maybe than we can afford, so. Any discussion on this? Okay, ask again for a roll call vote on approval of resolution 2108.
Jake Hill,
Yes.
Talon Shreve,
Yes.
Krista Zapone,
yes,
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Lisa Minor,
Yes.
Eileen Holmes,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
That'll bring us to resolution 2109, which is the resolution of the Denali Borough Assembly recommending funding for the emergency and entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve resolution 2109.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hill and seconded to approve. I did get a little note on my screen saying my connection's unstable. Everybody still hearing me okay? Okay. All right, any discussion on resolution 2109? If there's no discussion, ask for a roll call vote on approval.
Krista Zapone,
Yes,
Jake Hill,
Yes.
Lisa Minor,
Yes.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Eileen Holmes,
Yes.
Talon Shreve,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, the resolution is approved. I did see Mr. Carlson has joined us. We're going to move into discussing the draft ordinance for FY22 budget, but did you have a public comment before we go into that discussion, Mr. Carlson?
No, sir, just listening in.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us. Yeah, Ms. Zapone.
oh no, that was just me waving hi to Mr. Carlson.
All right. Okay, well, I would entertain a motion to introduce the ordinance 2105.
I will move to introduce ordinance 2105.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Zapone and seconded to introduce. And I'll pass this off to Mayor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll start by thanking Treasurer Planty, who's also on the call here, for this thorough and transparent and comprehensive budget document, which not only includes our budget message and the ordinance, as well as budget comparisons, budget legislation, and the school district budget. So I'll start by referencing the budget message, which is a valuable place to start. And I won't read through the whole document, but I will, highlight the narrative section where we describe the impacts of the pandemic, especially upon borough revenue, and talk about the fiscal strategy employed in 2021 of retaining general fund dollars as much as possible for future use, constraining expenditures, limiting transfers to fund accounts, and how those strategies will be carried forward into the FY22 budget cycle while we continue to pursue state and federal funding to account for lost tax revenue. So with that kind of overarching goal and strategy for the budget. Let's move to the ordinance itself, which we have on the screen, 2105. For the Finance Committee meeting, what was that, last week, I kind of went through a bit line by line, and I think I'll go through that same approach, not exactly every line item, but especially highlight those that change a bit or more significantly or might stand out. But we always start with revenue, and let's talk about our projections. That's what these are, projections for this coming fiscal year beginning July 1st. That sum, that projection of 2 million is well below our high of 4.2, less than half, but also way above what we project to have received this year of 750,000 total. So bookings are looking upward for different accommodations providers, especially some of the smaller providers, independent. People are looking for those distanced types of vacations, and at the same time, some of the larger hotels are definitely seeing upticks. So keep in mind that this projection includes next May and June as well. So we're calling this projection, hopefully optimistic. And we probably won't hit the mark exactly. Hopefully it'll come in maybe closer to FY 2020, maybe 2.8. That'd be nice. And moving down to, or I guess I'll pause there. That's a big item there on the revenue side. Any comments or questions there? I think we'll do that a little bit along the way. Severance stays about the same. That's both coal and gravel extraction in the borough. That alcohol and marijuana tax number at 150,000 will be interesting to see how that comes in. Of course, this is our first year of collections of that tax. And we estimated that a full regular year back in 2019 would have been around 350,000 was our estimate, again, in a projection. So a little bit less than half. But so far returns along those lines are looking like we might get a strong number there. The payment in lieu of taxes is federally funded again, that Department of Interior transfer. And looks like community assistance is not only going to be paid out to this sum, but also the House budget does have it backfilled for the future as well. So that brings our revenue to about 3 million. Down from 5 million a few years ago, but certainly better than this fiscal year. Then we move into the forward funding requirement, which is highlighted and always part of the budget ordinance. And that has the maximum forward funding number, the maximum expenditure. And you see that figure at over $6 million projected on April 20th. And now that number will go down as we move towards passage of the budget. But we've also said that we should not budget up to or even close to that number, knowing that we have this very lean year that's going to carry forward of our forward funding. So we need to preserve that cushion that's going to help next year and the year after in that forward funding calculation. Anything on forward funding? We are the only county in the whole country. And I've asked a number of people, nobody knows of any county that forward funds. So it's an interesting and unique mechanism. It does serve us well, but we need to plan for it in a lean year like we've got here. So, moving into expenditures. Some that look like they're changing quite a bit from other years. Will be a change in those years themselves, and these budget years will look, it will look different for years to come. Looking back at what happened in the 2021 budget, CARES was such a big part of the story, and how we strategically use CARES to not only support our community, but also to, in an allowable manner, to offset some of the borough expenses as well that we incurred due to the pandemic. So those are reflected. For example, there were staff members whose salaries were in a proportionate way proportionate to their redirection of their duties to respond to the pandemic, accounted for by CARES funding. And staff benefits, it looks like that goes up quite a bit when really our staff benefit package hasn't changed at all. We did have a premium holiday in 2020 for 6 months, a 6-month premium holiday, when your biggest expenditure in those benefits are health insurance, and you don't have a premium for half the year. That was quite a savings, but there's been no indication we're going to have a 6-month premium holiday, so we need to budget for the full benefits there. But that benefit package has not changed. Non-staff training and travel is one I'd like you to consider. That's assembly, training, and travel, and conferences. And we've always put a little bit larger number there. We've constricted all travel and training budgets across our line items across the budget. But consider whether that number is going to work for the assembly in terms of travel and training. Some conferences will be virtual. I've attended some virtual conferences this year. Certainly haven't traveled to any. And you'll see in FY20 actual was 5,600. We have 1,500 in that line item right now. So think about that one going forward. Staff training and travel, again, much constrained. Mayor as well, from years past. Rent stays the same. IT is one that really jumps up a lot for a couple of reasons. One, we did change the way we account for those line items. We had a lot of those line items, the software subscriptions were previously under dues and subscriptions. We put them all under IT. It's really IT, those software subscriptions. And honestly, we do have more now with these virtual meetings, with the increased usage of technology. So while some of that is a reflection of changing, where it's found in the budget, also do know that may well stay, at that higher level if we continue to rely on these additional IT subscriptions and services. Moving on down, things stay pretty much the same, kind of placeholder budget in a lot of ways. Audit services go up, as we should budget for the federal single audit that will come out of those CARES funds. It's possible that we could use those CARES funds for the audit itself, but we need to budget for it. Attorney's fees also do go up, as you see from actual. We have engaged our attorney a little more on some different topics. We did have a couple new taxes to implement. We had planning commission trainings, and we do have a new opinion that I'm going to tell you a little bit about at the next meeting. So those services have been valuable, but we have been asking a little more on the way of those services. And the 4083 overnight accommodations audit fees, We have 0 in 2021. With so few overnight accommodations businesses operating, we definitely didn't do an audit that year, and we've decided to continue that pause this year as well. We'll get back to those. They weren't always, it's in code, and it's helpful for operators to know that an audit is a possibility, and compliance has been good. So, also the last 2 times we audited somebody, the audit itself cost more than we received in their OA revenues. So we did kind of question that a little bit too, but we'll get back to them. Just going to pause right now. Moving on to the next page. I do want you to know that contingency is a combined contingency, and that contingency has been used to account for expenses that don't have another line item. Something unexpected might come up. In the past, we've had an assembly contingency, and it's been sizable some years, and I remember the assembly using it for some things here and there. And we also had a mayor contingency, and it is now a combined budget. And so know that is a combined contingency for both the administration and the assembly. But it is there for some of those unforeseen or unplanned expenses. Hazard mitigation is a newer line item. Not putting a lot to it, but we do believe it's important. We are pursuing a forestry grant for the addressing the Firewising program, that as we're collecting woody debris for people to firewise their properties. We don't plan on using these monies for that. We've had requests for other type of mitigation work. We're putting a small number there, $4,000. It won't take care of some of the mitigation work that we've been asked to do, but it provides a little bit of capacity. Now we move into contributions to fire departments and nonprofits. The public safety per capita is a formula that's in code. And of course, we've been working on the nonprofit contributions, the emergency services contributions listed separately. Revenue distribution sharing, that number will be known later and will be accounted for as an expenditure. It's really a pass-through of monies from the state that we pass through to those eligible organizations within the borough. And municipal assistance is that program that substitutes for other grant programs for an incorporated city within the borough. And of course, the city of Anderson is the only incorporated city. And so these monies will then be allocated by their council. They have control of these monies and how they're used exactly, but they do submit an application of how they're generally going to be used. And that funding level, we're recommending 40,000, is down from the actual from 2020 of 48. And of course, last year we didn't fund any grant programs, but did utilize CARES monies to help support the city of Anderson last year. I did communicate that number and let them know that that's a placeholder number and that it'll be on the assembly's agenda. But I did communicate that to them for their last meeting. Community events, that's mainly Winterfest, other events that are open to everybody. Can kind of keep that placeholder number there, 2,500. And economic development is that new line item we're hoping to further support this year. There are other potential ways to support economic development rather than utilizing borough general funds. So we're going to recommend a 0 there. And now we move into the school district. Really appreciate the school districts reducing their request from the maximum allowable of over 2.6 million down to 1.993. That's the biggest lever we've got in the budget, and we appreciate their support. And their help in bringing that lever down a little bit and maintaining their educational program as well. Shall I pause there and see if there are any questions? Okay, we'll move on into fund accounts. Everybody loves fund accounts. The different pots of money, different ways that we can fund different projects, different obligations, and build towards taking care of future needs is how we use our fund accounts. And some of them, haven't been around forever. That disaster contingency reserve, I remember when that was established, and we just put a little bit away every year, just a little bit away, so that we'd have some monies there in a disaster to be able to expend and then seek reimbursement for. And that reserve fund is a little bit over 130, I believe, thousand. And so we haven't been funding it to any great numbers recently. We've been putting a placeholder 1,000 in there. This year, we're recommending 0. The special revenue EMPG, that's emergency management performance grant that matches federal funds, that 12,000 there. And now let's look at some of our bigger funds, the capital improvement and the major school maintenance. Capital improvement, major school maintenance. Major school maintenance is one of our main responsibilities. And we haven't put anything in there we're not recommending put anything there for the second year in a row. That fund right now is north of 800,000, around 800, I'm gonna say maybe 60,000. Capital improvement fund stands currently at about 430. That is how we've come at some sizable capital projects, including, building the Healy transfer station a few years ago. And we've been rebuilding that capital projects fund. We put $189,000 in it back in 2020, but these years we put 0. Parks and Rec, newer fund that we're building, but we're going to plan to put 10,000 in it this year. Should this budget pass as is, we know that fund needs more. We've committed to some projects, specifically an improvement project along the Healy Spur Road to increase safety and access by having wide shoulders on the Healy Spur Road. We know that when that project comes to construction, we're gonna need to contribute over 100,000, and we don't have that in the Parks and Rec right now, but we're gonna kind of just keep chipping away, bringing it up. We'll put 10,000 in this 22 year, and also in next meeting, you'll see the FY21 amendment, and we're going to recommend making a contribution to Parks and Rec in that budget too. Emergency response apparatus, that's that newer program where it's a 50-50 match between the VFD and the borough to help with the replenishment of apparatus here, with the state not contributing these days. So we put 200,000 to it in FY19. We put 200,000 to it in FY20. It's been 0 in 21, 0 in 22. And you'll have some action coming before you at the next meeting as well to fund current requests to match apparatus needs. So those are to the general fund accounts. And now let's move to the enterprise funds, land and solid waste. Land is going to need a transfer, a backfill from the general fund to meet its expenses for the year ahead, as it usually does. Land has never paid for itself, frankly, as an enterprise. It's always needed support from the general fund, and this year that transfer, based on its budget, needs to, and what it has in its fund accounts right now, needs to be $60,000. Solid waste, we're doing pretty well, not great, meaning we don't have to transfer any general fund monies to fund the solid waste budget this year, which is a good thing. but at the same time, solid waste can't pay for its own landfill closure. So we're gonna fund that out of the general fund to the tune of $73,000. That's a calculated need annually to the closure fund based on those closure calculations. So we'll do that from the general fund this year. And matching grants, 0. That brings total general fund expenditures as planned in this budget to $4,682,000. Now, remember, we almost always zero out that budgetary reserve. We did miss that budgetary reserve, didn't we? That was at the bottom of page 1. That was $848,000. That budgetary reserve, that's, required in code. And it does act as something of a savings mechanism where that nearly $1 million, that $850,000 will be available next year for forward funding as we zero that out. So if you take out that budgetary reserve, it's a $3.8 million budget, which doesn't balance with those revenues of about $3 million. But it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be earlier either.
Thank you very much, Mayor Walker. Any questions for the mayor or discussion of the budget ordinance that the mayor's passing off to us? Mayor Walker?
Yeah, thanks. So that's the meat and potatoes, but then also as part of the budget ordinance, the assembly does approve the enterprise budgets as well. And we could move into those next if you like.
Anybody opposed to moving on to the enterprise budgets? Okay, let's do it.
Okay, land like solid waste has 2 funds, basically an operating fund and a capital fund. So that's that operating fund that we'll be talking about here and expenditures therein. So we start off with staff salaries that go up a bit. We do have some planned projects of which we may need some part-time support or help. And we're going to bump that up a little bit, not a lot. A lot of it's placeholder, a lot of it's kind of chalk going across from previous numbers, and basically what it costs to run it. At the same time, consultant fees, you'll see that does include in the budget narrative, that includes surveying and and it also includes of course hiring a consultant. We are planning on some GIS support as we develop a new GIS system for addressing. And we're not planning on a lot of surveys out of this. You'll see in prior years, in 2020, we spent 133 there. We did aerial mapping that year as well as, and we paid half of that aerial mapping cost with this. That was a state partnership, but we also paid for boundary surveys, Otto Lake and Anderson, and we'll be getting those in the not too distant future. And we do know that we have survey instructions for the Healy parcel that we will want to come at some point to invest in, to spend the money to boundary survey and thus take title to those lands. That's the long-term project here, to continue with surveys and taking title to our lands. And then at the bottom, you see a transfer within land. If this budget passes, the assembly by this line item would approve this transfer from land sales to the land management fund, which is the operating fund of 150,000. I could go into that a little more if you like. The land sales fund doesn't really have a codified usage, and it was used as an accounting mechanism, frankly. And it's time to put those funds to use to operate our land department. And it really is land and planning. I think I mentioned this earlier. Most municipalities don't exactly call it an enterprise. They run their planning department as a borough planning department. It's just part of their expenditures, part of what they need to do as a borough. It's one of our responsibilities as a borough to plan. And we do run it as an enterprise. And again, it hasn't been real successful in paying its way the whole time, but it has brought in some money, and that land sales is useful here, and it will continue to be in the future as we hopefully have more land sales in the future, or not hopefully, but work towards those. But it takes work, it takes money to get there. Anything else on land? And it's pretty much a department of one full-time employee. So moving into solid waste. We have 2 full-time employees at the landfill. We need a seasonal gatekeeper up there as well. And then we employ 2 part-time gatekeepers at our 2 transfer stations. Our revenue fluctuates a bit with visitation levels, with projects. Tipping fees were over $550,000 in FY 2020. They went down considerably this past year, and we are putting forward a pretty constrained solid waste budget in response to that. And at the same time, it may not balance. It didn't this past year, but in general, it's been pretty much paying for itself in general until the decline in visitation last year. So we anticipate tipping fees to be around 400,000. It's not all just visitation, but project based too. Especially projects on clear, for example, on base. That can result in a lot of incoming material. Let's move into the expenses. Staff salaries, pretty stable, even down a little bit. Benefits does the same thing. Benefit package hasn't changed. Had that premium holiday in 2020. Travel and training. Scott and Paul, our 2 full-time employees at the landfill, were able to do their SWANA certification. That's their professional organization, Solid Waste Association of North America. They were able to renew their manager of landfill operations certification online this year, and certainly saved some on the travel piece, as it's usually in Anchorage or Fairbanks. Heating fuel is going to go up a little bit. We have less oil, both vegetable and and engine oil coming in, and we've had to buy some more heating fuel. Boy, look at that 2020. It's a pretty big shop we've got there. You know, we did expand it a couple years ago, and I was a little worried about heating it in the bill, but we really did a great job. That waste to energy program, using those waste oils to heat the shop. But some of those supplies are down a little bit right now. IT equipment, about 18,000 for equipment. Safety equipment, we use that line item every year. And then the big line item is often repairs and maintenance. We've had some pretty big repairs and maintenance years. We run older equipment, some of it downright old. And it does have maintenance needs, but also know that repairs and maintenance here is also the facilities themselves. You know, both transfer stations need fence work right now. You know, if the building needs a roof repair, either transfer station or the landfill itself, you know, that comes out of repairs and maintenance. It's not just the equipment. So we are putting a constrained number lower than we've had for many years there, of 35,000, with a plan that if we have a bigger and more systemic need, especially on a piece of equipment, if a system goes down, if it needs a new transmission or a larger ticket item, that we probably do that through a different funding mechanism, an allocation ordinance out of that capital fund, out of that separate fund, out of that equipment reserve fund. So for operating here, we're going to keep a constrained number there, 35,000, and for all the equipment and repair needs of the facilities. Fuel, snow plowing, we've had a fair amount of snow at both facilities, and going to bump that line item up a bit, but not that much over the 2020 number. What else of note? The others stay pretty much the same. Hauling fees from Cantwell and Healy stay about the same, bump up a little bit. And well monitoring, we do hope those costs, this year we're going to be under 30,000 for well monitoring. And we hope we can duplicate that next year, but sometimes DEC does, it depends on how the event goes, how the report looks, and what additional requests DEC might have. So then the inspections, that's always a great line item where we pay to have ourselves inspected. Everybody loves doing that, huh? And a little contingency, and that rounds out the solid waste budget. No transfers within the solid waste enterprise. The operating fund is not going to fund the closure fund, nor is it going to contribute to equipment reserve. We've done that in the past. Look at 2020. Not only did the solid waste operating budget take care of its own expenditures, but it also funded the landfill closure fund to that $76,000 level, and it funded $30,000 to the equipment reserve. But we're not able to do that this year. So that's the enterprise funds.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. Did you want to highlight anything in the budget comparisons or going on there?
Yeah, the next sections we have budget information, including organizational chart, hours and duties, and wage schedule, budget comparisons. Then we have legislation. And then we have the school district budget. Yeah, it's about the comparisons. Yeah, we've been keeping up these charts over the years, and as, of course, the revenue picture dropping so much. I guess on that, let's see, which page is it? Revenues had been steadily going upward. Slow but steady really was our growth pattern here. A good pattern. Slow and steady until 2020. And you see our expenditures go down quite a bit with revenues as well. And some of that is attributed to allowable necessary uses of CARES funding. Yeah, Amber, if you could scroll down a little bit, that chart is kind of what so the visuals are always helpful. It's kind of what I was looking at. See the blue revenue totals and the drop. 2020, remember, half of fiscal year 2020 was in FY19, and actually that's the lion's share of the revenue season, is that July, August, September of 19 were in FY 2020. That's why those 2020 revenues don't fall right off the table, but more so in 2021, which we're currently in. And also, our other funding sources, both the PILT and the community assistance, definitely by staying stable have helped, I guess, have helped smooth that drop a bit. And another thing to notice or know here really is you might say, gosh, that total expenditures in 22 is what, maybe even the highest of all the bars. But that includes the budgetary reserve too. These other red bars are with that, or actuals, and with that budgetary reserve zeroed out. So that red bar will come down. So that's a graphic representation. Maybe anything else you want to talk about, or the next graphic representations?
Thank you, Mayor Walker.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the ordinance 2105? Okay, well, appreciate the work that Mayor Walker and Ms. Planty and the staff has put into this. The thoughtfulness to our long-term fiscal health and the belt tightening that, is getting us, seems to me anyway, to be putting us on a path this year to continue our functions and I think allow us to serve the community in the future years as well. So interesting to see how this will change over the next couple of months and next year after summer revenue season kind of kicks in and finish off our amendment for this year's budget. But great. If there's not any more discussion now, though, I would ask for a roll call vote on introducing this ordinance 2105.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Jake Hill,
Yes.
Talon Shreve,
Yes.
Lisa Minor,
Yes.
Eileen Holmes,
Yes.
Krista Zapone,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman,
Yes.
unanimous.
I'll move to postpone.
Second.
All right. Mr. Hill has moved to postpone the ordinance to our next meeting. Been seconded. Any discussion on postponing? In terms of timeline on passage, Mayor Walker, we could pass it at the next meeting, but often that doesn't happen until June. But if we don't do anything by July, it goes into it becomes adopted as in its current state.
That's exactly correct. Yeah, and personally, I would recommend, sometimes we do pass it in May if we, feel real certain about things. This is certainly a less certain environment, and June would be fine. To wait until June. And that way it does also go through two different public hearings. We'll have a public hearing on it in May and a public hearing on it if you carry it through in June. And that'd be good.
Anyone opposed to postponing to May? Okay, call that unanimous. That'll bring us back to public comments.
Pretty quiet here.
Okay. All right, if there's no public comments, go on to assembly comments. Go ahead and start at the top with Mr. Canali.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say congratulations to Mayor Walker, borough staff for putting this budget package together. Very well articulated, clearly laid out. Really enjoyed the message narrative. I think that helps to clarify exactly where we're at, where we're going. And I think the budget takes into account conservative revenues, but yet still allows the borough to function with quality services for the next year. So great job to Mayor Walker and staff for putting this together. Much appreciated.
Mr. Hill.
Yeah, of course, I'd like to echo all of that. We've had a meeting heavy couple of months here, and obviously all of these are surrounding the current financial situation we're in, which is very important to us all right now. So I certainly appreciate the work that the borough staff has done, especially Treasurer Planty. So thank you for all of this. I'm glad we've had the opportunity to look at it a couple times as the Finance Committee and here again. And certainly I hope that if there are questions, it's nice to be able to have this special meeting to get it onto the agenda so that the public has the most time to look at it and understand where we're all coming from. None of these decisions certainly were made lightly. And I think to the contrary, there's a lot of care and a lot of thought that has gone into this. So I really do appreciate all that work, and glad we were able to get through so much of it tonight. So thank you for those attending, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Mr. Shreve.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody else for all the work that they've done and for everybody understanding with the situation that we're in and not everybody asking for the full amount, but if they did, knowing that it was just a placeholder. I think it was McKinley Village Fire Department, what they said for their grant is that we gave the full amount. That way you could see what we were needing, but knowing that we were going to get a lesser, looking at a lesser a portion just because of the fiscal times that we're in. So I really like that when he explained that, and just everybody's thought process on how they've been doing their grants and for the budget and everything. So yeah, thanks.
Ms. Minor.
I guess I'd just echo what everybody said. Yeah, I really appreciate the packet. I appreciate you guys, especially after watching the finance meeting and then having it here in my hands so I could see the graphs. That helps for my non-finance brain. And again, thank you to the public for the people being willing to tighten their belts and understanding what the borough's trying to do. And yeah, thank you to the finance committee for all your work and prep too, and the borough staff. Thanks.
Ms. Zapone.
Yeah, it's a quiet meeting, and I think that is just because of what has been stated. Most of us tuned in for the finance committee meeting last week. We've done, I think, from my perspective, our diligence individually to really look at this. So I know you did a lot of talking tonight, Mr. Mayor, but it is something I feel we're all taking very seriously. So I look forward to this next few meetings to get through budget season. But you know, I also agree that this is a very clear, transparent picture of where we're at as a borough. And so hopefully the public walks away seeing that more than anything else. And on top of that, of course, our efforts. So to echo everybody else, congratulations to the staff, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Planty, Ms. Lambert, even in our land office. You guys are doing a great job. So keep it up. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also echo thanks. Reach out to anybody in the public that's interested. If you've got any input and if there's anything we're missing in our budget here, please let us know. I did have one note on the ordinance, prompted by just the discussion of the OA tax audit. And just thinking that we do have two sales taxes in the borough now, and not sure if it makes sense to change the title of that line item just to be a sales tax audit fee. So if we did want to audit any of the alcohol or marijuana, if it makes sense to lump it all together, but to give staff flexibility, whatever makes sense there. Or if it would be a separate one if we wanted to do something like that, but could put some thought into that, and if it makes sense, we could make that change. That's all I got. Ms. Holmes.
I think everybody's pretty well covered my thoughts on everything. I do appreciate, like was stated before, the understanding that the organizations have given and the consideration that I think they really realize how tough it is to cut here. And I think they're just wonderful for handling it like they are. Thank you.
Okay, that'll bring us to time and place of our next meeting, which will be right back here on the Zoom, May 12th at 6 p.m. Plan on seeing everybody then, and hope everybody's staying safe and enjoying the springtime.
I saw mosquitoes.
They were out today. Motion to adjourn, anyone?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Canali. In a second, anyone opposed? Good night.
Need to get outside.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.